Hi, this is a video about how to get started using the R statistical programming. So what you're going to do to get started is you're first going to download the software. So to do that, I'm going to show you here, just go to Google and type in R. Um, it's easiest to get to the website if you search for R using the CRAN, C-R-A-N. So if you type in R CRAN into Google, then the first thing that comes up is this thing called the Comprehensive R Archive Network. That's the CRAN. So click on that. And while that's loading, let me talk a little bit about how R works and how it's stored. So R is free and it's open source, which means developers all over the world help to develop the software. So the core part of R is known as base R. And base R can be downloaded by anybody onto any operating system. And you can do a lot in base R. You can do all sorts of statistics and computations and graphics and things only using base R. But what makes R very powerful and where the benefits of the open source aspect come in is that any developer in the world can create a package for R, which is like a little bonus software that sits on top of base R. And so, for example, when I use R, I will open up R and then load specific packages that I want to use within R. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is download R. That took a little bit longer to load that website than I thought that it would. In any case, I'm running a Mac, so I'm going to select from this homepage here the Mac option, but you should select the option that's appropriate for whatever operating system you are running. And then what you're going to do is there's a lot of words on this page. You can read it all if you want, but essentially I want you to download whatever regular base R package is. So for me, it would be this one here. This has got some different options for different updates of the Mac operating system and some different versions of R. But basically, this one that says regular is the one that you want to download. So you're going to click that, and since R is already downloaded on my machine, I'm not totally sure how this will go. But essentially, it'll start downloading. And it's, for me, it looks like it's a 77 megabyte file, which I don't actually want to do right now because I think that'll harm what the video here. Okay, so let's pretend that I've done that. Then if I want to go and open R, then this is what it looks like. This R with the little oval circle thing behind it right here. So you could open that up. You can see it's opening in my dock there. For some reason, I've got some big time zooming going on, so let's reduce the zooming on that screen. Okay, so when you've downloaded R and you open it, this is what it looks like. It doesn't look like much. So here's the deal. R is very powerful, but regular R that looks just like this is essentially just this that you see here. It's this command line, and it's nothing else. And so as a user interface, this is very unfriendly, and it can be very sort of difficult to manage using your data in R when all you've got is a command line in front of you. It'll generate files and you'll pop up boxes and things like that. But basically, from this plain R console that you see here, it's hard to use R. And so what most people do is they use a secondary software called R Studio. So let's go back to Google. And we'll do a new search here, and now we're going to look for R Studio. We're going to click that, and oh, I should have just clicked the one that says download. In any case, you're going to then download R Studio. Where's the one that I want? I don't want to be sold something. I just want regular R Studio. Let's go to products. Let's click R Studio. Okay, so you want this one here, the R Studio desktop. So you're going to click that, and you are going to download R Studio desktop. It's trying to sell you things, but just ignore that stuff. And click download R Studio desktop. You'll get another little, oh wait, no, we're not at the pop-up box yet. Okay, so you just want the free version. Wow, it's been a while since I did this. I had no idea they did such a hard sell with things. Okay, so they're already telling you here. Step 1, install R, check. Step 2, download RStudio Desktop, check. So it looks like for me it detected what my operating system is. I don't know if it'll do the same for you. You can see here RStudio is twice as big almost as R. So it's 121 megabytes. So I'm not going to actually download it and install it right now, but that's the second step that you would do. Okay, so once that's done, this is like a cooking show where I say, pop it into the oven, and then 2 seconds later you take it out. Okay, so now I'm taking my RStudio out of the oven here. So RStudio looks like this, the shiny 3D ball thing. Here's the way it works. You have to have R in order to run RStudio. RStudio is not literally R. It's the user interface that allows you to operate R in a more friendly environment. So you need R, and RStudio just runs R. But I basically never open the oval version. I never open plain R. I only ever open RStudio. It's just that RStudio is literally just a user interface. It's not the actual software. Let me adjust my screen here so you can see everything. All right, so I use R and RStudio a lot. So you can see there's a lot of junk open on my screen when I go to RStudio. But let me just walk you through what some of this is. So when you open RStudio, you've got 4 main boxes. You've got this one here in the upper left. These are your scripts. Here in the upper right, you have the objects that are available in your environment, and also a history of commands and functions that you've run. In the lower right here, you've got a whole bunch of different options here. Right now I'm on the Packages tab. So you remember at the beginning I was talking about how you've got base R and then packages you can add to R. So I'll talk more about packages in a second, but this is sort of my packages menu. You've got a help, so I use this one a lot. Help files in R can be a little bit difficult to read at first, but with practice you'll get better at it. But there's always like definitions and then how to use a function and usually some examples. If you create any plots, this is where your plots will also show up. So I'm just going to leave it on help for now. And then over here in the lower left is your actual console. So what you'll notice is that this thing in the lower left looks exactly like R did when I first opened up R, and it was just the words and the blinking light. That's essentially exactly what this box is. This is, now you can see my little arrow there. There's my cursor. So this is the R console. So I can operate R right from this command line, and then it'll do things in other parts of R here. So actually, since I opened it up kind of in the middle of a session, I was working on some other stuff. I'm gonna I'm going to show you how to make an error in R. So what I'm trying to do is write a command that'll just clear my workspace. Okay, so if you want to remember that command, you can, but you don't need to. So the command, you can see what happened when I ran that command is it made my environment go empty. There were things up here before, and now they are gone, because I just wanted to start with a clean thing for you. Okay, you can see I actually have lots and lots of scripts that are open right now. Some of these have to do with my own research that I've been working on. Some of them, sometimes I produce for some of my classes. I use production, when I'm teaching stats particularly, I'll make slides in R, and so for one of my classes, these are like slide presentations that I've made for them. In any case, I want to show you a blank version. So I'm just going to hit new script. My light is kind of dying. That doesn't help. Okay. So I could either operate R from down here in the command line, just one command at a time, or when you want to remember a series of commands and save them and use them again later and edit them as you go, you write a little script up here. Now, this script, you could use any text editor that you wanted. And then run those same scripts here in R. But RStudio is nice because it's got the built-in script editor right here for you. But I'm going to kind of ignore the script function for a while and just show some basic introductions to R that you can operate from the command line here. So first thing to note is that you can use R like a calculator. So I could write 2 plus 2 and it'll tell me 4. I could write 2 times 6 and it'll tell me 12. You can see it's got that little 1 in square brackets before it has the answer to the question. The 1 in square brackets just is telling us the place of the observation. So that's our first observation in a vector that we've created. In this case, it's a scalar because it's just one value. But it knows PEMDAS, so you can use parentheses if you want. So if you tell it 2 plus 20 and then divide that by 4, it'll give you correct answers. So it does all the basic regular arithmetic functions. It'll do square root functions. So you could take the command for square root is sqrt. So if you take the square root of 64, then it'll tell you that's 8. So one thing you'll notice that I did there is I wrote the function sqrt for square root, and then I made parentheses and put the value inside the parentheses. So I want to break that down and tell you what's going on because it's a fairly fundamental thing about how to use R. R works by using functions and objects. So a function is a command that you give the computer, and a function requires arguments to go into it. So when you're giving R an instruction, you tell it which function you want. In this case, it was the square root function. And then in parentheses, you put the arguments that go into that function. So to get a little bit more detail, like I could put in the help file over here, tell me how to use the square root function. It'll tell me that up here, it tells me that's a function in base R, so that helps. This same file also gives you information about how to use R to calculate absolute value. But it tells you that the way to use R is just square root of x, where x is the argument. And then there's some other basic things down here. So 64 is the argument that I put inside the function that the function ran. Okay, so the other thing is we can create objects. So I did a bunch of math there, but I didn't save it in any way. I was just one by one using the calculator. But what if I wanted to do a series of things and save them? You can save your answers to your problems into objects to use them later. So let's say I wanted the square root of 64 as an object that I'm going to call x. So x, I'm going to assign the value of square root 64. So now you can see what happened here, up here in my environment. I now see that I have an object called x and it takes on the value of 8. So it evaluated the function, it solved the problem. And then this is just literally the greater than sign on my keyboard and the minus or dash sign. So this is called an assignment operator. You can also use the equal sign as an assignment operator, but I prefer this more traditional style of using the arrow because it reminds me which direction my object points to, which can sometimes get more confusing in more sophisticated functions. So I could create a function y and assign it the value of 25. I could create a function a and assign it the value 4 minus 2. And you can see they're all popping up there in my environment. Okay, so now, and if I wanted to remove a function, I use the rm command for remove. So I'm going to remove function a, and now that function is gone. And I want to remove both x and y at the same time. I just put a comma between them, and it removes both of those. If I created a uppercase function x that I'll give the value 3 times 3, and then I tell it to remove lowercase x, it will tell me it's not found. So that's your lesson in R is case sensitive. So every comma, every capitalization has to be in the right place, otherwise you'll get errors. And fair bit of warning, R errors can be very frustrating because they often are obtuse and you don't know what they mean. Like it didn't tell me you forgot to capitalize it. It told me object not found. So you have to use your own intuition to figure that out, and it can get a little frustrating sometimes. Okay. The last thing I want to introduce you to here is both packages and a specific package that can help you learn how to use R. So let me remove that function I had, or that value that I had, although I could have left it there, it doesn't matter. So packages, you can go over here to packages in the lower right, and you can click install. So your packages are probably empty right now because you don't have any. The package I want you to install is called Swirl. And ignore that capitalization here. You want the Swirl that is lowercase. So SWIRL, and you're going to click install package. For me, that package is already installed. So when you install a new package, you're just like downloading it from the internet. And you can see it's doing that all on its own. And sometimes it might install more than one package because some packages have dependencies. And so it'll ask you if you want to download the dependencies. Like one package will need some other packages to run. And so it may download more than one thing, which is fine. You can see it's not a big deal to just have hundreds of packages. But I don't want all those packages open at the same time. I've downloaded them because I use them, but some of them contradict one another. They don't play nicely together in the sandbox. And I need to control which ones are open or closed at any given time. And you can do that right over here in this packages handy list. So what I want to do right now is show you how to use Swirl. So one way to do that is to just go find Swirl. For you, this will be easier because you don't have so many packages in your list here. There it is. So I'm just going to find Swirl and I'm going to click on it and it's going to open. Okay, there's other ways to have done that, but I'm just going to show you that shortcut way for now because we're already at 16 minutes and I was trying to keep this to 15. Okay, so what you get now is, hi, type Swirl open close parentheses when you are ready to begin. So let's just do that. Whoops, I need to click in this box so I can use my cursor there. The open and close parentheses, remember, is a way to use functions, but in this case, it's a way to open and begin using the Swirl package. And the first thing it asks me is, what shall I call you? You can give it any name you want. I had kind of a downer morning, so I'm going to call myself Supergirl today just to kind of boost my spirits. You can probably use your real name or whatever cute name you want. Okay, so then it gives you instructions. It first teaches you how to use Swirl, so you're just going to read these instructions. When you see ... that means just hit enter to keep going. Now, this is actually a little bit of joke. It wants you to select 1, 2, or 3, but they all mean the same thing. So 1 is continue, 2 is proceed, and 3 is let's get going. Those are all synonyms. It doesn't matter which one you press. They all do the same thing. Okay. These are a little bit of instructions that you might actually want to write down. While you're using Swirl, I suggest you either keep a physical notebook next to you for taking notes or an electronic notebook that you go back and forth to write stuff down, because you're going to learn functions and you're going to learn things about how to use R and you're going to want to remember them. Here, like remembering how to exit from R by typing BYE and by might be quite helpful. Okay. So then what you're going to do is get a bunch of options. You get a menu. So I suggest just start at the top. So let's start with number 1, which is R programming, the basics of programming in R. I'm going to select that. And then within that, you just have to press 1 again to get to R programming. Otherwise, you can go download more parts that can be added to this. So there's 14 lessons in the R introduction to R programming. So if you just start with lesson 1, basic building blocks, then you're at the beginning of your first lesson. And it gives you instructions. You can see over here in the right-hand margin the % of how much of the lesson you've done, and you should read these things. I'm not going to read them right now. And it's going to start with some stuff that I was starting with before, like use R as a calculator. And then it tells you what to do. Type 5 plus 7 and press enter. So I'm doing that. And here's my favorite part of Swirl. It gives you little affirmations. So it says, all that hard work is paying off. And now I get a little pat on my back. I'm a 4-year-old, and so I like getting stars when I do things right. And Swirl is very good at doing that. Okay, so it's going to teach you step by step how to use R. Now it's going to teach you about the assignment operator. So this first lesson actually already has things that I've told you about. It wants you to create an object called X, that is 5 plus 7. One thing I'm going to show you here is I told you capitalization and commas and things like that are important. What are not so important are spaces. So in their instructions, there's a space between everything, and here I've got a space around my assignment operator, but I'm not putting spaces between 5 plus and 7, and it'll work exactly the same. So most programmers like to space things out, and it keeps things organized if you use a consistent spacing technique or pattern to how you write things. And so I often try to put spaces in lots of my functions, but if you don't, it won't make things wrong. It won't give you an error. Okay, so what I recommend is you just keep using Swirl. Just go through these step by step. Even when you've mastered one, you can do it again to try to get better at it. If you get stuck, you can Google how to try to get out of it. When you're ready to leave, you can type bye, and that is leaving Swirl. You can't use your R console unless while you're in Swirl unless you exit Swirl. So Swirl does literally take over your R console, which is not true of most packages. But I like Swirl because it's free. You operate it right here from within RStudio, and it teaches you step by step how to use R while you're within R. There's lots of other ways to do this. You could go use Code Academy. You could use there's some Harvard courses, or what are they called? Coursera courses about using R and other stuff out there. A lot of them you wind up having to pay for, but you can get a lot of that same content right here from within Swirl. So download RStudio, install those, get to know the environment a little bit, download the package of Swirl, and start learning R step by step by going through swirls. And eventually, when you get to the point where you've got some data and you want to download some data to put into R and start playing with it, that might be taking things to another level, and you should get in touch with me and I'll make another video about that. Okay, that's how to get started with R. I hope this video is helpful. Everyone take care. Bye-bye.